Hi, and welcome to an exploration of analytical method number 3, withholding judgment. Now, this is kind of like a precondition for kind of thoroughly, properly, reasonably analyzing different texts, and it's especially useful and important to keep in mind when you are looking at some kind of text or document that you, off the top of the bat, either agree strongly with or disagree strongly with. So what we're going to look at right now is a part of a text with which I strongly disagree, and that is an exploration of Reconstruction in the American South called Reconstruction, Political and Economic, 1865 to 1877, by the historian William Dunning, which was written in, and it was written in 1907. Now this understanding of the Reconstruction it became the kind of common sense accepted wisdom by historians and even the general public for generations after it was written, and it placed the blame for failures on the Reconstruction squarely on the North, which was described by Dunning as being predatory and aggressive and pushing a kind of complete equality between white and black Southerners onto white Southerners and black Southerners for that matter, that nobody was ready for, and that because it was bullying and the conditions on the ground were not ready for this, that Reconstruction failed. So let's look at a segment of this text, keeping in mind two important aspects of withholding judgment. And the first aspect is to try to hold off agreement or disagreement with the text until you can repeat the position of the author fairly and accurately, in a way that the author, him or herself, would consider fair and accurate. And second is to try to not use evaluative adjectives, those that kind of judge a text in ways that aren't based on checkable standards. So you want to be explicit about the standards you're using to analyze a text. So let's do those two things. In this segment, Dunning is talking about the Black Codes, the series of laws passed by Southern state governments that restricted the economic and political and human rights of the freedmen, of the freed slaves. And Dunning says, as a matter of fact, this legislation, far from embodying any spirit of defiance towards the North or any purpose to evade the conditions which the victors had imposed, was in the main a conscientious and straightforward attempt to bring some sort of order out of the social and economic chaos which a full acceptance of the results of war and emancipation involved. All right. So the first thing we'd want to do is try to restate that in a way that Dunning would find fair and acceptable. And you could say that the Black Codes did not represent a rejection of Reconstruction. They only represented a good faith attempt by Southern whites to restore stability and prosperity in the region after that had been destabilized by the war. Now, whether or not you think that's true is another story, but we need to state it in a way Dunning would find acceptable. And now that we've done that, we kind of clear-headedly see what his argument is. We want to not just say, that's bull, even if we think it is. We want to figure out how we can evaluate this argument, how we can figure out, how we can be explicit about what standards we're judging it by. And I think it's reasonable to look at several claims inherent in this argument, and then we can judge the overall argument based on whether or not these claims are correct. So, for instance, one standard to check for accuracy of this claim is the idea that the Southern writers of the Black Codes were making a good faith attempt at things. So we could look at what we know of the motivations of the authors of the Black Codes based on their writing or other evidence. We could judge the extent to which these laws were passed in order to bring stability, and compare maybe other laws passed or other actions done or writings of these the authors of the Black Codes, and look at that and see whether overall they are trying to create stability, or on the other hand, whether they are trying to undercut the main goals of the Reconstruction and kind of reestablish some kind of some kind of form of slavery, if not in name, then in fact. It would be useful for us to make sure we're explicitly judging the accuracy of Dunning's arguments based on the idea that, we're looking at the idea that white Southerners who were writing these laws fully accepted the results of the war and emancipation, and whether or not the chaos that followed was as a result of this acceptance, this is what Dunning is claiming in this part of the text. So, by being explicit about the standards that we're judging and not just reacting viscerally to this, we can get our analysis of it on a much better foundation. Though again, this is only the first step, and now that you've set out these standards and these criteria for judgment, you're going to have to follow up and actually roll up your sleeves and delve into these ideas. Right. Good luck.